as well. We dive into what the Georgia Southern and Statesboro Regional looks like. Again, Georgia Southern, the host, the number 16 national seed, the number 1 seed in the Statesboro Regional, the 2 seed, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, 3 seed Texas Tech Red Raiders, and then the UNCG Spartans bring up the rear in the 4 spot. We'll kind of take these teams one by one. Georgia Southern will be facing UNCG in the first round. Again, a double elimination format for these 4 teams in the regional. You got 2 games Friday, 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday, and then the if necessary for the championship of the regional will be on Monday if that's needed. 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock will be the games on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then I believe a 6 o'clock first pitch for the Monday game if that's necessary again. But Georgia Southern will have the 7 o'clock game on Friday. The 2 o'clock game will feature Notre Dame and Texas Tech, and that's going to be a really good game. First, we'll dive into the number 2 seed, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Finished 35-14 on the regular season, 16-11 in ACC play. You've got a number of really good hitters in this lineup, a team that's almost hitting 300 as a team, scoring a good bit of runs. But the ERA for this team is something that's really spectacular. 3.91 ERA. We've talked about it many times. Under a 4-team ERA is really good in the game of college baseball nowadays. But John Michael Bertrand is somebody that's fantastic. 8-2 the record, a 2.39 ERA. He will get his 15th start at some point this weekend, and if you're Georgia Southern, you're kind of hoping it's against the Red Raiders at 2 o'clock on Friday.
If it is, and it's him versus Birdsell, I would want to be in that ballpark at 2 o'clock on Friday to watch that.
Oh, we will.
For somebody else that's thinking about it, I would want to be there. Let that be your primer for Georgia Southern and UNCG.
Yeah,
but
let that be the little warm-up.
When I looked at Notre Dame a little bit more closely, it reminded me a lot of Florida State. Because Florida State has a great pitching staff, but 2 starters where you probably rely on. Bertrand, of course, gets the spotlight on him like a Parker Messick does for Florida State, the Nationals leader in strikeouts. But if they hit a little bit, they let their defense and their pitching do the rest.
Yeah.
Not a lot of games relative to the rest of the country. They had a number of cancellations during the season. South Bend, Indiana doesn't get great weather, regardless of what time of the year you're talking about. But that is a team that, like Kendall mentioned, is going to be highly motivated because they have to travel down here and probably deal with gnats for the first time.
That's a good point. You got 5 guys in that lineup hitting over 300, leading RBI guy on this squad. You've got 2 guys tied with 42, Carter Putz, and then Brooks Concy with 42 RBIs on the year. Not necessarily as a team running a whole lot. You've got a couple of guys, Ryan Cole, a lot of speed in the top of that lineup, but a really balanced and what looks like a really good lineup.
And Ryan Cole, along with Bertrand, was named All-ACC, and this is a team that, as we mentioned, finished second in the Atlantic. It's very difficult to have a record over 500 in the ACC because it is a collectively good league. That's why it's one of the best baseball leagues in the country. As good as Georgia Tech's offense is, they finished dead even in conference play because they couldn't pitch and they had some troubles with their defense, and who knows, maybe that's a team that Georgia Southern will see in the Supers if it happens to pair up that way. But for Notre Dame, the fact that they did not get a chance to host after what happened to them a year ago, they still went to a Super. For guys that have been around for both, I'm not sure I want to be Texas Tech in that first game. It's going to be a great pitching matchup, but I've got to think the Irish are even more ready to fight when they come to Statesboro this weekend.
Move on to the number 3 seed in the Texas Tech Red Raiders out of the Big 12. 37-20 the record, 15-9 in Big 12 play. It's an ERA for this team as a whole over 5, but Big 12 kind of known as an offensive conference. There's a lot of really big sluggers in this league, but Brandon Birdsell, a 3-even ERA, 8-3, and 102 strikeouts in 78 innings of work.
The interesting thing about both of them is that they both play on all-turf fields.
Now, true. I didn't think about that.
Coming to an all-natural, you'd have to go back individually and see just how much, if at all, they've played on natural surfaces. It is a switch. Now, some would say going from grass to turf, it's difficult because it's going to be quicker. But maybe if you're turf to grass, you're thinking, okay, that's going to move more as quickly as I'm used to, but maybe it doesn't. But that'll be something that they'll work out once they get down here. We've already mentioned with Young, but also with Texas Tech. Tim Tadlock's teams have always been able to hit.
Yeah.
And we have heard for years that if you have to go to Lubbock for a regional or a super, care who you are, good luck, because they are nuts. And those are the people that are going to be invading Statesboro this weekend. Luckily, it's a J.I. Clements and not having to deal with going out to Northwest Texas. But they have been so good because they have so much support. They have a bought-in program, a bought-in fan base because of how Tim Tadlock has shifted them into the national spotlight.
Offensively, we talked about Jace Jung being one of the top hitters in the country, really. He's going to be a top 10 pick. 340 average, 56 driven home, and 14 home runs, getting on base at almost a 50% clip. This is a Texas Tech team that will hit, almost hitting 300 as a team, a lot like Notre Dame. But this is a team that gets on base. They're getting on base at over 40% of the time. This is a team, and again, one that doesn't run very much, just 29 steals as a team on the year. But they get on base, and they make you make mistakes.
And with Young, he was the Big 12 Player of the Year last year. He may have been in the discussion this year if Ivan Melendez wasn't hitting better than 420 with 29 home runs and maybe the National Player of the Year. I know how good Kevin Parada has been for Georgia Tech, but I think Melendez may have that one locked up. With Texas Tech, high on-base percentage as a team, and when you're a squad that's also hit 83 home runs, you can not only potentially small ball your way. That doesn't mean you bunt because they don't bunt a lot. You could potentially do that by how you flood the base paths, but you're looking at a lot of potential for multi-run homers, and that's the plays that really swing games. For Georgia Southern, 3 solo home runs in the title game against Louisiana. Great to get the crowd on your side, but it's only 1 run you're getting. Texas Tech with 83 bombs, a lot of those are 2-3 grand slams, and that's how they can take momentum right back from you, even though they did fall in the Big 12 semis over the weekend.
The 4 seed is the champion of the Southern Conference. This one a bid stealer as well. 34-28 the record, 12-9 in SoCon play, but having to defeat Wofford twice on Championship Sunday to be able to do so. It's a lineup that is hitting well, over 300, 311 team average, getting on base well. They'll run a little bit, not a ton, but a really good offense that you know you're going to see.
Yeah, the 311 team batting average, second in the conference, 10th best in the country. We play Mercer twice a year.
Yes.
We always marvel at how high so many of their guys rank in the SoCon in terms of individual categories. Now, a lot of it's because of the ballpark. We know the ball jumps there. It's very short to right center. UNCG is the team that Mercer's constantly fighting with for all those categories. So we're going to see how the other side lives a little bit. But a lot like Mercer, the top 5 guys in this batting order all hitting at least 330.
Jeez.
They've got Hogan Windish, a second baseman who was named SoCon Player of the Year. He's got 16 home runs. You usually don't associate the power numbers with second baseman unless you're talking about Chase Utley, Jeff Kent, guys of that ilk. Top of the order, Kennedy Jones, the freshman, leads the conference in RBIs. The leadoff guy leads the conference in RBIs with 73 of those. He had 17 in those 7 games in the SoCon tournament where they had to come out of the losers bracket. So it's clear that they know how to get guys on base and score them. Pitching-wise, they had to stress a lot of their top arms over the week because they had to win multiple games in multiple days. Mentioned how they had to beat Wofford twice on Sunday to win the championship, so I don't know what they're going to have left and how they're going to piece it together, but I do know that Austin Parsley is probably the guy that Georgia Southern is going to see. He's been the number 1 the last 2 weeks. They have the SoCon's Pitcher of the Year, reliever Alex Hoppe. He has a sub-3 ERA. Opponents are hitting under 200 against him. He got knocked around by the Citadel in the conference tournament and did not throw after that victory over the Bulldogs 3 days before. But somebody you've got to think is going to be in the discussion if UNCG has any kind of difficulties with its starting pitching, which is probably going to be Parsley on Friday.
The reoccurring theme that you see throughout this regional, what does the depth of your pitching staff look like? Kendall just talked about it. Texas Tech past the top 2 have been suspect.
Yeah, it's iffy.
Notre Dame past the top 1, maybe 2 have been iffy. UNCG past the top starter and top reliever has been iffy. I think that's what's going to stand out this weekend. Who has the pitching staff that's going to really stand up? Because you've got some pretty good offenses. Probably maybe one of the top offensive collective regionals this year.
outside of Tennessee and Georgia Tech. But hey, that's just ironic. That
Yeah, but that's just 2 out of 4.
That's just Campbell Kennett. Zach Neto is a really good shortstop. But this grouping of teams with UNCG, I feel like either one of two things is going to happen or they're both going to happen. You're going to have to ride a guy longer than you have to, or you're going to have to make someone do something that they haven't this year, somebody that's only thrown a handful of innings, maybe like what Georgia Southern has done with Hayden Harris lately. He gets the start, his first ever postseason start against Troy. He'd only thrown 25 innings all year. Goes 3 2/3 shutout, benefited from 2 double plays. The line drive with first and second in that third inning was huge to be able to get him through that scoreless outing. But if you're a staff, even if you haven't thrown very much, like Rodney Hennon has said, mostly from a hitting standpoint, it's all hands on deck.
Yeah.
I mean, we've become accustomed to Ty Fisher being Ty Fisher. Jalen Payton doesn't give up a whole lot of hits. If he can find a way to command his pitches, he is a really effective guy. Jay Thompson can do anything that you need him to. We've seen what Thomas Higgins can do. Didn't see Thomas Ross, Brooks Gorman. Didn't even see Javon Ray in the tournament, but that's somebody who has started before. Danny Madden has been a late inning guy and a starter. You have to look down and see who can I use where and how much can I get out of you. Because look at this. It's a regional for the first time in 8 years. You've never hosted one, so you can bet that the Eagles are going to do everything that they possibly can to make sure that they're playing the next weekend in a super.
It's going to be one fun weekend here in Statesboro as Georgia Southern hosts the regionals here in Statesboro. J.I. Clement Stadium, Jack Stallings Field, the host for a NCAA baseball regional.
And that is one I wish was still alive to see this because of what he built over almost a quarter century here, taking this program back to a College World Series in 1990. I know his name is on the warning track behind home plate, but how proud would Coach Stallings be of this?
Funny you mentioned that. The first thing I saw this morning when I woke up, I was going through social media of everybody reacting to the fact that Georgia Southern was hosting a regional. The first one I saw was his grandson, Brad, that popped up. But this is going to be a fun weekend in Statesboro. You've got 4 really good college baseball teams here in Statesboro. Come out, support not only Georgia Southern, but college baseball as a whole. Really good college baseball going to be played this weekend. 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock on Friday, 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock on Saturday, 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock on Sunday. If necessary, on Monday will be a 6 o'clock first pitch at J.I. Clement Stadium. Georgia Southern will play the 7 o'clock game against UNCG on Friday. Texas Tech and Notre Dame matching up for the first game of the Statesboro Regional on Friday.
And before we wrap up, parking and ticketing information is online, gseagles.com. You can call the ticket office at 1-800-GSU-WINS. They were closed today because it was Memorial Day, but you can get all the information you need, make the purchases you need to. Bring somebody, bring a lot of people, get as many tickets as you can, blow this thing out because this is something that has never happened before, and let's hope that this is the start of something that we get a chance to do a lot more. I can't wait for this.
This is going to be a fun weekend and historic weekend for Georgia Southern and Georgia Southern baseball, and already a historic program for Eagle baseball. But until this weekend for the 2022 Statesboro Regional of the NCAA Tournament, for the voice of the Eagles, Danny Reed, this is Colin Lacy saying so long, everybody.